Marathon, Kaplan Trucking, Dealer Tire, Greater Sandusky Partnership, the National Safety Apparel, City of Maple Heights, City of Lakewood, City of North Olmsted, City of Bracknell, City of Brooklyn, Brown Immigration Law, the Northeast Ohio Sewer District, the City of Parma, Case Western Reserve, and the Legal Aid Society. Those are all the folks who helped make all the events possible this year. So let's please give our sponsors a big round of applause. Tonight is the first forum of its kind where we have two candidates who are going to be speaking to, and hearing from our international community. This event wouldn't have been possible without Asian Services in Action. Elaine So, where are you? Elaine So. And just so everybody knows, Elaine's team is registering people, nonpartisan, to vote. They also have the best swag I've ever seen. They're giving out chopsticks. Elaine, you are awesome. We also want to thank Asia Town Cleveland, Karis Zeng, who was really supportive. Karis, if you're here, thank you for everything. The British American Chamber of Commerce, and with deep sympathies to those of you with regard to Her Majesty, thank you so much for your support and for your conference this week that was stellar. The Cleveland Council on World Affairs, Karina Vandelay, who's a neighborhood resident. Thank you, Karina. Also, of course, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens. Patrick Kearns is here. Where are you at, Patrick? Refugee Response. Love you, man. Love you. Don't forget to buy your tickets for REAP on October 1st. A wonderful event at the farm. Smart Development is Malak Rashid here. Malak, where are you at? Appreciate you. Shukran Jazilan for everything you do. Also, USCRI, see you right there, Cleveland. Love you so much. Thank you for being here. One of our wonderful resettlement agencies, and the Young Latino Network, too. Thank you all so very much for being there. And I want to just take a quick second and thank the staff at Global Cleveland. Raise your hand if you're a Global Cleveland person. Especially thank you to this guy who put this whole thing on, Colin Derrick. We love you. Without further ado, during Welcoming Week, we would like to introduce now our moderator, Mr. Sanjeev Kapoor. Mr. Kapoor is a distinguished attorney at Jones Day. He is also a Global Cleveland Board of Trustee member, and we are grateful to him for moderating tonight. Without any further ado, let's get to why we're here. Mr. Kapoor.
Thank you, Joe. And in fact, I want to echo what Joe said. Colin has been instrumental in getting this organized. And in fact, I guess the other thing I should mention is that, Joe, you forgot to mention Asian Services Gala event on October 14th at Tangiers.
The mic's off.
Oh, the mic is off. Is it on now? No. Is it on?
No.
Okay.
I think just closer.
Oh, am I speaking too close?
No, you need a louder.
I need to be, okay. All right. There we go. Okay.
Maybe you forgot to say testing.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we can do the plug out for Elaine's organization. They have a gala on October 14th at Tangiers, and so hopefully everybody can support them as well. They've been very supportive in this endeavor. As Joe mentioned, we have 9 partners along with Global Cleveland that have put this event together. They have together formulated some 11 questions, which I will pose to both candidates, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. And Colin will be keeping time to make sure that they each spends only 2 minutes answering each question. And then at the end, there will be an open mic or open opportunity for everybody here to pose their questions focused on making Cleveland global. So first, I'd like to introduce both candidates. I have the benefit of having known both of them, and I know both of them are dedicated to making Cleveland more international from my association with them. And so, in no particular order, let me first introduce Chris Ronayne. Chris is a 40-year resident of Cuyahoga County, currently residing in Cleveland's Edgewater neighborhood. Chris and his wife Natalie have been married for 19 years and have 2 children, Audrey and Joe. Chris has an extensive history of public service, having previously served as planning director of the City of Cleveland and having spent the previous 16 years as the president of University Circle, Inc. I will also note that he and I have served together on the board of Notre Dame College, a college that has 80 international students from 16 different countries. So education and its impact on globalization of Cleveland is important, and obviously he has that benefit, having served on the board of Notre Dame College before he stepped down when he ran for county executive. Our second candidate, but not the second in order necessarily, is Lee Weingart. Lee Weingart is the founder and president of the LNE Group, a bipartisan government advocacy firm named for his 3 children, Lizzie, Ned, and Ethan, and former Cuyahoga County Commissioner. Coupled with his vast private and public sector experience, Lee is running to reestablish public faith in Cuyahoga County government and to make the county a better place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. Lee and his wife, Caroline, owner of Lizzie's Bakery, have been married for 28 years and live in Shaker Heights. I will also note that when I joined Jones Day in 1990, Lee also was a lawyer at Jones Day at that time, and in fact I had invited him to an Asian Indian event, and he not only accepted but enthusiastically attended. So I know he has an interest in ethnic communities and the global communities here in Cleveland. So with that, I'm going to start and pose a question, and I'm going to alternate the order so that each person gets a chance to go first. So the first question that has been formulated by the 10 organizations is, what is your experience serving and interacting with the international and immigrant residents in your community, Greater Cleveland, and Northeast Ohio at large? How has this shaped your understanding of your community and your role as a leader? So Leo, you start this one with you.
Well, first I'm going to thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to apologize for my voice. I'm croaking because I cheered so much for the Browns yesterday. So in 2002, I started my company as a domestic company. And in 2010, we became an international company, which was very important for us. It gave us a chance to bring our European workers over to the United States for long-term internships to learn about the American economy, and to send our American workers to Europe to learn about the international economy. And so we got great cross-pollination within our firm by sending folks back and forth between Europe and the United States. We've been very active around the world doing big projects. I'll talk about one quickly. We are working right now with the Republic of Cuba to commercialize a medication for diabetic foot ulcers, which kill about 100,000 people a year in the United States, predominantly communities of color. So if we can commercialize this drug in the United States, to be the first Cuban origin drug commercialized in the United States, it would save 100,000 lives a year. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing there. We've also worked closely with firms in Asia. We have a large project right now in Central Ohio that could be a $10 billion project and about 6,000 jobs that could bleed up into the Cleveland area. And then finally, on a personal level, my wife Caroline, who is here tonight, and I have hosted 3 international students. 2 for a short-term, 1-month stay, but one was with us for an entire school year at Shaker Heights, a young German man. He came over as a junior. And I found myself acting as in loco parentis when he came home after his first German exam, only getting 3 of the 4 questions correct. So I've enjoyed our work internationally as a company and with my wife hosting international students here in Cleveland.
Thank you. Chris?
Sanjay, good to see you again. Thank you, Joe Zimmerman, for hosting and all of Global Cleveland tonight. It's good to be back at the jukebox. I was here 2 weeks ago for my birthday, watching Serena Williams on the big screen. Here's to Serena. I wanted to say to all of you, if you didn't know, I've worked the last 16 years in University Circle, and as was introduced, I was planning director for the city of Cleveland. We had a tremendous interface with our international community and hope for a lot more. We lived it in University Circle. On any given year, of the 10,000 some students that were at Case Western Reserve University, the Cleveland Institute of Music, and Cleveland Institute of Art, a quarter were from other countries. And often we would meet our students literally in their first week in a very sometimes challenging environment, trying to just navigate the city, trying to find housing in a minute, trying to literally find transportation. So my team, some of whom are here today, we were quite literally always the welcoming team for those that were coming from other places. And there's a lot of anxiety that goes into that, as Global Cleveland knows, sometimes for persons that are here for the very first time. Very proud of that experience, very proud of working with 50,000 workers and growing a base of workforce that was pro-immigrant, that depends on H-1 visas. In our hospitals, our universities, we would find ourselves often calling out to members of Congress to help keep people here, to help bring people here. And those were workers or researchers and residents who were ready to go, but for some of the laws that precluded their advancing to Cleveland. So we need to change that paradigm, but I've had a lot of experience in University Circle with our international community, and I'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. And actually, your comments are good leeway into the next question formulated by the committee. It says, annually, hundreds of international students graduate from Case Western, Tri-C, CSU, Notre Dame College, Baldwin-Wallace College, Ursuline College, and John Carroll. With in-demand skills who are not being retained. Can you share what policies you will support or consider to address this lost opportunity to grow the population and bolster economic growth?
Thanks, Sabi. This is the issue. Those of you that work in this space know it. It's one thing to recruit, it's another to retain. And for all the great work and aspiration in this room, we don't do a good enough job of it here in Cleveland. We could do better. I will step out with one policy initiative right out of the gates from Cuyahoga County. I plan to have an Office of International Affairs at Cuyahoga County. It is demonstrated in metros across the United States that those cities and counties that have that office, that are dedicated from the public sector to work with the private sector on this initiative, are gaining ground on us. The other thing is there will be tireless advocacy from me with the Greater Cleveland Partnership to make this a priority of our big and small businesses, to give students that cooperative opportunity, like they have down in Cincinnati, when University of Cincinnati has a co-op department that actually is training business and students into the community of employers like Procter & Gamble and many more, Kroger, that participate in that. We need to do that here. We need to say, what is life after your collegiate experience? And we can do that with some policy advances that are both on the public sector and the private sector, and of course the nonprofit sector with groups like Global Cleveland. But I think this is the issue, is keeping students who are here on visa, who are here for a short time on research, just keeping that talent pool in Cleveland. We have 19 counties, we have 20-some universities, 100,000 some students, as Richard Shatton once said to me. This is a college town, but it's got to be a post-college town too, with our students staying here. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Lee?
So the challenge, of course, is federal law. If you get a visa as a student to study in Cleveland or anywhere in the United States, you're limited in what you can do in terms of your work. I and my wife right now are seeing this with our daughter, who is studying in London on a student visa. She will graduate soon from school, but can't get a visa to work in London. The same challenges, of course, occur here in the United States. Once we get over that hurdle of a visa, we have to have opportunities in Cuyahoga County to keep our students here. That's why I've called for creating 4,000 new good-paying jobs in Cuyahoga County. Advanced manufacturing, playing on our historic excellence in manufacturing, working with our 3 excellent healthcare systems to drive biotech and medtech and companies like that into Cleveland to employ our students who are graduating from our colleges and universities. And then leveraging the Great Lake to bring into Cleveland and Cuyahoga County water intensive and water innovative companies. So if we have more jobs in the county, we can employ more international students in the county. That's my focus as county executive, is to get our economy growing again for our citizens who are here now, and for students who will be coming here to study and hopefully to stay with us for the long term.
Thank you, Lee. Our third question. Cleveland has over 23 sister city relationships. How do you intend to work with the city of Cleveland to ensure that these relationships also benefit Cleveland's 50-plus suburbs, both economically and culturally?
So in 2020, I hosted the Ambassador of the United States from Cuba for 3 days. And we met with Mayor Jackson and started the process of trying to create a relationship between the city of Cleveland and Havana as a sister city. And that didn't go the way we wanted it to go for reasons beyond our control, mostly from the federal government. But the idea was to try and tie Cleveland to Havana, because we were doing the work, we were starting to do the work on the diabetic foot ulcer project I mentioned earlier. We do need to leverage our sister cities to benefit Cleveland and to benefit Cuyahoga County, and I'll do that as county executive. I have traveled extensively internationally And we'll use that experience that I have in cities around the world to try and promote Cleveland to the world and to promote the world back to Cleveland.
Thank you. Chris?
I'm only going to do this once, Lee, but you also met with me. It was good to meet with you on that initiative, and I'm sure we agree on that particular effort. We met with the Cleveland Institute of Art, the Museum of Art, and some of the delegation in University Circle. We need to do a lot more of this recruiting and selling this area. To the sister cities comment, first of all, let's get more than our 23 that are here. We have 116, 120, you name it, communities, ethnic communities around this city and this globe that come from places elsewhere. If we have 23 cities, let's grow that base. I am proud for two reasons to be a part of this initiative. One, City of Rouen, a very special city that came here on the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day. They credited Cleveland University Hospitals for bringing the first U.S. Army deployment into Europe. The mayor remembered it, he brought it here, we had a big celebration, but it didn't end at University Hospitals and Cleveland Clinic, which went back there. It's a great history story, it's a great story to follow, but it really got going when they went over to meet Eaton, Lubrizol, companies that were already in northern France. But our onboarding with Global Cleveland and with others to the Rouen city that is one of our cities, that's exactly the framework for action of our future. So this is a lot about dedicating our efforts, intentionality, and really, really thinking of this as economic development as it is.
Next question. Our population loss from 2010 to 2018 would have been even worse if not for the 37,000 immigrants who moved into Cuyahoga County during that time period. These new residents have offset the population loss by 45%. How can we attract more immigrants to move here to continue this important trend?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the numbers. 20% of businesses formed in the United States, 20+% are formed by first-generation immigrants. 40% of Fortune 500 companies are first-generation immigrants. 60% of tech companies are first-generation immigrants. Under the Ronayne administration, the County of the Future, we will have a first-generation program for Clevelanders to help businesses with everything they need to get through. Language barriers, permit barriers, just understanding the neighborhoods and the communities they are in, and translators, and that you can help us provide to actually work hand-to-hand with businesses. But for any of those things may otherwise be up and running with a business. We know that this is the trend, that the trend is that immigrants are entrepreneurs, are economic development conduits. We've got to start looking at immigration policy as economic development policy and stop thinking about it as an us and them. We grow as communities as we grow in immigrants. It's why University Circle grew in the last decade. Cleveland lost 11% of its population. University Circle grew 14%. The delta, immigrants. It's economic development. We need to start thinking of it in those terms.
Thank you, Chris. Lee?
There's no question there's been a loss in population in the last 25 years. When I was county commissioner in the mid-1990s, Cuyahoga County was a growing county. We were adding people. We were adding jobs. The last 25 years, under maladministration, inept and ineffective leadership, we find ourselves shrinking. When I left, we were the biggest county in Ohio, and now we're the second biggest behind Franklin County. So we need to have an open door policy. We need to recruit immigrants from around the world to come to Cleveland and to come to Cuyahoga County. We need to repopulate our county again. So let's focus on areas where there are already large groups of immigrants in the greater Cleveland area, like Ukraine, like Central America, like South America. Let's get folks who can come to Cuyahoga County and to Cleveland and find a welcoming community of people that know their language, know their culture, and know their customs. If we do that, we can get our population growing again, get our economy growing again, and make our county better for everybody.
Thank you, Lee. Well, there's another set of immigrants we're going to talk about now, and those are refugees. Many of you have heard that Governor Abbott is now sending refugees to various cities, New York, Washington, I think now Philadelphia. And so I guess my question would be, what would you do if he started sending people to Cleveland? And so in that context, let me read to you the question. A record number of refugees are expected to move to Cleveland in 2022. Much of the community support for new arrivals comes from nonprofit organizations and fellow refugees. What should the city, county, and state do to help refugees fully participate in Cleveland's social, educational, and economic systems? And I would add, what would you do if Governor Abbott sent a busload of refugees here to Cleveland?
So, Cuyahoga County is, at its very core, a social services organization. We take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. And refugees certainly fall within that category in many cases. They come often without resources, without a language knowledge, without the opportunity to support their families. So the county has a role to play, without any question, within our Health and Human Services budget. If we were to receive a busload of immigrants or refugees from Texas, I would welcome them with open arms, of course. That's what we do in Cuyahoga County. We are a county of immigrants. This is what Cleveland was and is today. So we don't turn our back on those who are in need. We don't turn away from refugees. So if we get a busload or two busloads, we find a place and a way to take care of them.
Thank you, Lee. Chris?
I think we not only react, I think we proactively go after it. I think that the refugee response in this community, Patrick, thank you for the work you do, and so many that work steadfastly on working with our refugee communities, as you've known and as you live, quickly citizens on board into this community. This is a welcoming community, but we need to show that from the public sector. We need to have staff that's working with you, with our refugees, to help on board. So that's what I'm saying about the Office of International Affairs and our first generation program that helps them on board into communities. I think we need to proactively go after this. We know where we sit is a sustainable place on the Great Lakes. We know that we can quickly source some of our workforce challenges, and we know that we have room to grow in a city specifically that's lost 60% of its population over 60 years. Look at the numbers again. 7,000 immigrant-owned businesses in Cuyahoga County. That is more than 20% of the 33,000 businesses in Cuyahoga County. Immigrants mean economic development, and I think our refugees are right there with it, and we bring our refugees in proactively to work on this together. One thing I want to say while I have a couple of seconds left is I believe that we have tried in this community to develop public-private partnerships. I think one of the missing links is the nonprofit sector in terms of the acknowledgement that we need to run on all three cylinders. This is a perfect example where the government can be welcoming, where nonprofits can be the conduit, and where businesses can be tapped to say, give persons a chance, whether they're coming here for the first day as a refugee or whether they've been here for a year as a student. Give them a chance. It's something I will lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. According to the New American Economy, immigrants are 38% more likely to be entrepreneurs than U.S.-born residents, and there are over 7,000 immigrant entrepreneurs in Cuyahoga County. How do you plan on supporting this entrepreneurial population?
Well, one of the things we haven't talked enough about is our communities and making sure that our communities are ready and welcome. I would look to a couple of different communities as examples, and sometimes it's just mayoral leadership. Mayor Tim DeGeeter in Parma was ready for the Ukrainian response, and the community rolled out the red carpet. They brought a bipartisan coalition of our elected leaders from the state, from our House of Representatives, from Senate, to the place to say, we care, we need you. And you know what? All these elected officials, and my being an aspiring one, turned around and we were there for Ukrainian Independence Day, for their festival last month. We were there for the parade. We need to let the community know we care. And so tapping into some of these mayors where there's enclaves of immigrants and saying, look, this is good for your community. All of our communities, so many of them have lost population. South Euclid, Mayor Wheelo, she understands her Bhutanese population that's in the city of South Euclid. And as Sanji and I both served on the Notre Dame College Board, Notre Dame College is a college of immigrants. Many first-born, first-generation immigrants, and many that are the first in their family to go to college. But there's a mayor there that cares that her population grows and welcomes. So county exec working with suburban communities in addition to Mayor Justin Bibb here in Cleveland, we can do this. We can really grow our population again with an intentional strategy. And again, I'll lead that from our Office of International Affairs at Cuyahoga County. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Lee?
So the question was on entrepreneurship, and I have proposed, as some of you probably know, a pretty radical plan to help form and grow 250 new small businesses, minority-owned small businesses here in Cuyahoga County. It's a $10 million fund that will provide training and startup capital for 250 small businesses. Now, this is important because we need to grow our small business base. When I started my company in 2002, I could have walked into any bank I wanted in Cleveland because I'm a white man, got the money I needed to start a business. But that's not the case for every entrepreneur, surely an entrepreneur of color. So the county can step in and help minority entrepreneurs, whether they be citizens today or citizens in the future coming to our community, to grow new businesses. This is how you generate wealth that starts and stays in the urban core of Cuyahoga County. It's how you combat unemployment, poverty, and crime in Cuyahoga County, in Cleveland particularly. So I'm very committed to entrepreneurship. I know it's done for me and for my family. I'll bring that opportunity to those who are here and those who are coming here as well.
Thank you. Good lead into the next question for you, Lee. As evidenced by this information, immigrants are a key part of building a successful and strong regional economy. Cuyahoga County's immigrant population pay over $18 pay over $1 billion in taxes every year and have a regional spending power of over $3 billion. How will you support integrating this powerful demographic into a county growth plan and welcoming more immigrants to our communities?
As I've said, we have to get our economy growing again in Cuyahoga County. We are, last I checked, at the highest unemployment in the state of Ohio. As I looked at comparable counties around the Midwest before I decided to run for county executive, I looked at counties that were like Cuyahoga, industrial, Midwestern based. We were last in everything that you want to be first in, and first in things you don't want to be first in. So it seems to me we have to change the dynamics, the focus, what we're doing in Cuyahoga County to focus on growing the economy. So I talked about 4,000 new jobs. I'm committing actual numbers on paper. This is not theoretical. This is not just talk. I'm saying 4,000 new, good-paying jobs in Cuyahoga County, paying at least $25 per hour, with benefits, not requiring a college degree in every case. I have a plan to help 10,000 families who are currently living in public housing or rental properties move into a home that they own, and having minority contractors do a lot of the work around construction of these homes. We know that a family living in a home has security for that family, creates wealth for that family, and safety for the community. So my primary focus as county executive is to get our economy growing again through home ownership, targeted job creation, and new small businesses.
Thank you, Lee. Chris?
Another thing I think we should acknowledge in the economy of Northeast Ohio is it's a regional economy, and I think we should see a county exec working with the multiple county commissioners around the Horn of Cuyahoga County. There's just people at different stages in their life and different portals of entry into this community. It should be a regional effort. NOACA could be helpful in having that conversation since they're a framework for 5 counties talking to one another every month. I think that one thing we miss very much in this town is that cross-sector leadership. I think universities need to deploy people who are talking to public sector officials, who are talking to the private sector officials. I've heard Joe Simperman say this a lot. When people are in the back rows arguing about immigration policy and quote illegal persons coming across borders, he's arguing for economic development, asking CEOs to simply tap into their potential to sponsor the stay of someone just coming out of college. I really think it's incumbent on our private sector to lean in as an economic development strategy. So I will lean in very much on the Greater Cleveland Partnership to make this happen. Look, the core areas of the water economy, the health economy, the IT economy, the advanced manufacturing economy, those are core areas of immigrant opportunity, not to mention just supporting small business initiatives, which is why my first generation program will be a part of the county economic development department. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we have a question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The important and paramount diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation happening right now often does not include members of the international community living in Cuyahoga County. Would you support policies in the private and public sectors that take into consideration the voices of this diverse an important constituency? Would you vote for and promote policies in government to achieve these goals?
With us. And when we look at the statistics on economics, on small business growth, on academic achievement, on community well-being, we see that it truly is a win-win. Look at the city of Solon. It's a good place to start and see the community that's growing because it's growing in immigrants.
Thank you, Chris. Lee?
So we do need to include in our diversity efforts immigrants coming to the United States. But they do not suffer the same discrimination as black citizens do in Cuyahoga County. So I will be very clear. I want to promote the interests of black contractors in Cuyahoga County. Every year, Cuyahoga County contracts about $400 million. Less than 1% goes to black contractors, even though black citizens make up about 30% of the county. So I will, from the first day, mandate that every contract have a minimum 10% going to a minority, read black contractor. If I get a contract to be signed without a 10% contract volume shared with a minority contractor, I will not sign it. I will do away with this so-called good faith effort where majority contractors can say, look, I tried to find somebody who was a minority, I couldn't find them, and then they're excused from having a minority partner. My view is we have to do better in Cuyahoga County. 10% is the minimum. When I leave after my second term, after 8 years, my goal is that 20% of all county contract spending is with minority contractors, read black contractors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Now a question about language. Currently, Cuyahoga County has contracted with Us Together for when interpretation or translation services are needed for an ESL resident seeking help from the county. The county also has some of its HHS program pages, including SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, and financial assistance, as well as several others translated into Spanish. These policies and partnerships are useful for limited English proficiency English speakers, but would you consider expanding the county's efforts to communicate with LEP individuals? For example, by offering a wider range of web pages translated into Spanish, or having the HHS program pages translated into other common non-English languages in Cuyahoga County, such as Arabic or Chinese?
I would. These days, it's very easy to translate a page. You go to Google Translate and you can get it translated pretty easily. The county web pages don't change very often either, so we wouldn't need to be changing the translations on the web pages very often. So I'd want to take a survey of the minority communities within, immigrant communities within Cuyahoga County, and see which ones we think there are enough members here where we would want to have translations of county pages in their languages.
Thank you, Lee. Chris?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is on contract. I just want to go back and say another thing we don't disagree on. I talked about the rule of 30 recently, the proportionality of contracts going to persons of color, and said it's 30% in this community, it ought to be 30% contracts. So respect the 20, but I'll raise it 10. On the issue of the website, it's the lowest of low-hanging fruit. It's abysmal. Went to it today, just on this question. You try to find the translation button. It's not there. It should be easy, front page, right? This is the lowest of low-hanging fruit, but this goes right to the issue of inclusion and diversity. If you cannot translate your own county government page to a county that you're paying the taxes to, something's really wrong, and something is wrong with that website. This is should have been done years ago, so let's do it.
Thank you. Another question on language. To encourage municipalities to expand their options, would you consider creating a grant program for Cuyahoga County communities to increase their language access programs, including translation and English as a learning language programs?
Of course, and I think there might be a way to work with intermediaries like Global Cleveland to source you with outside sources of funds that make it taxpayer neutral. This is something people want to help with. They want to help their neighbors succeed, right? So let's appeal to that heart that's out there in Cuyahoga County. I have to say, I have been traveling, as Lee has, Cuyahoga County for a year and a half, and the optimism I hear and see in this county relative to people just helping people, they're out there. I think our neighbors want to see this happen, and so yes, we'll appeal to all sectors to contribute, to basically help people navigate the community they live in and they contribute to, and the faster they can navigate it, the more they can contribute to it. The answer is absolutely yes.
Thank you. Lee?
Well, I'll respond to the rule of 30, which I've heard for the first time tonight. The first time I've heard him take a position on anything that was definite, 10, 20, or 30. So he's mimicking my policy, trying to one-up me, but he won't. I'm the one who's committed from the very beginning of this campaign to make sure that minority contractors get a fair share of the contracts in Cuyahoga County. Answer the question, of course, we will work with nonprofit organizations, local governments, and the city of Cleveland and the county to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for new arrivals, people coming into our county for the first time, to navigate the system.
Thank you.